There is a cold can sitting in your fridge right now. You already know how the first sip tastes before you even open it. 13,000 years ago, somebody was chasing that same taste inside a cave in Israel. They poured barley into a hole cut in the stone floor and covered it with water. They let it swell and sprout and go sour. No farm, no bread, no village. The cave was not a home, it was a graveyard. You were taught the order in school: farming first, then bread, then beer as a treat at the end. The dirt keeps telling it backwards, so what if the wheat was never really about the bread? The cave is called Raqefet, up on Mount Carmel in northern Israel. Li Liu digs up ancient tools at Stanford. She scraped the grooves inside 3 stone bowls sunk into that cave floor. In 2018, she published what was stuck in them: wheat and barley starch, bent and split in a very specific way. The grain had been soaked, then sprouted, then warmed, then left to go fizzy. That is not how you grind flour. That is how you brew. The people who used that cave are called the Natufians. They hunted gazelle, they picked wild seeds, they planted nothing. No fields, no ploughs, no harvest to store for winter. About 30 of their dead were laid into that rock. The stone bowls sat right beside the bodies. The oldest drink we can find was poured at a funeral. Danny Nadell dug in those same graves. In 2013, he reported the print of flowers pressed into the mud under the dead. Mint, sage, and other flowering stems, laid down like a mattress, 13,000 years ago. With no farm and no writing anywhere on earth, somebody picked flowers for a funeral and set out a drink. Think about what one drink actually does inside a room. Strangers talk, rules bend, the guard drops. 2 hunting bands who do not trust each other sit down and get loose together. For people with no laws, no police, and no kings, that is not a small trick. A shared cup was the first peace deal. Your body was ready for that cup long before the cave existed. Matthew Carrigan studied the tiny tool in your liver that breaks alcohol apart. In 2015, he rebuilt the old ape version of it in a lab and tested it. About 10 million years ago, that tool got 40 times faster. You are still carrying the upgrade. Something back then was drinking a lot. Picture a piece of fruit dropping in an African forest and splitting open. Yeast lands on the sugar and starts eating it. The sugar turns into alcohol, and now the smell carries across the whole clearing. Robert Dudley named this the drunken monkey idea. His version is that our ancestors never stumbled into booze by accident. They followed the smell on purpose. The nose found the bar before the hands ever built one. 9,000 years ago in Henan, China, there was a village called Jiahu. Patrick McGovern tested the crust dried inside their clay jars. Rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn fruit, all fermented together in one pot. Fermented just means yeast ate the sugar and left alcohol behind. Out of the same dirt, they pulled flutes carved from crane bones, drink in the jars, music in the bones. People were throwing parties before they bothered inventing writing. Bread has a real case here too. At a site in Jordan called Shubaika, a team led by Amaya Aranz Oteyegi sifted through an old fire pit. They found burnt crumbs of flatbread made from wild grain, 14,400 years old, older than the cave in Israel, older than any farm on the planet. So hunters were baking as well as brewing. Bread is not the weak side of this fight. But the strangest thing in this story was still buried under a hill in Turkey. Wind on a bare hill in southeast Turkey, nothing on top but dry grass. Klaus Schmidt started digging there in 1995. The hill is called Göbekli Tepe. Under the soil were rings of giant stone pillars standing in circles. The tallest is over 5 meters. The heaviest weighs more than 10 tons. Foxes, snakes, vultures, and human hands are carved into the stone. The place is about 11,500 years old. It beats the first pyramid by 6,000 years. Nobody who built it was a farmer. They hunted, they gathered, they had no crops and no city. They still dragged 10-ton slabs up that hill and stood them upright. When they were finished with the place, they packed it with rubble and hid it. Then Oliver Dietrich found the tubs, huge limestone basins cut from single blocks. The largest holds about 160 litres. Why would people with no farm need a tub that big? The walls of those basins tested positive for calcium oxalate. That is a crust that forms when grain sits in water and ferments. Hunters with no fields built a barrel that holds 160 litres. Now look at the hills right behind that site. They are called Karakadar. In 1997, Manfred Huhn matched the wheat in our fields to the wild wheat growing on that exact slope. The bread in your kitchen traces back to that hillside. The oldest temple on earth sits next door to the birthplace of wheat. And it is full of giant tubs. Brian Hayden has studied feasts for 40 years. In 2013, he asked what was really brewing in the Natufian world. His answer is simple and a little bit ugly. Nobody hauls stone for free. You pay a work crew in food and drink. You have shown up for unpaid work because the lunch was free. So did they. Beer may have been the first paycheck. Nobody can prove what sat in those tubs. Calcium oxalate shows up in beer. It also shows up in plain grain mush. Those basins might have held porridge for a big crowd and nothing more. Klaus Schmidt died in 2014 with the question wide open. Push past the crust on the stone and you are only guessing. The case is still open. That can in your fridge has not changed much. The bubbles are gas from yeast breathing. The same gas came out of a split fruit 10 million years ago. We built cities, we invented writing, we landed people on the moon, and we still do the exact thing that started all of it. You will pour a drink for somebody this month for no good reason at all. That reason is the oldest one we have. Thanks for sitting here with me through this one. Subscribe, and I will save you a seat for the next story.